For real though, I've imagined this moment since I moved to Las Vegas in 2012, and this is special for me. To make things even more specialer, we have aces in this majestic place. Man, they look good. I'm in the hijack and I open to 30. The small blind calls, he's in for a world of hurt. The big blind calls, whose world of hurt will be slightly smaller. We go 3 ways to the flop. In position, it comes Jack 3-3 with 2 diamonds. It's nearly as safe as it gets. The small blind, big blind both check. I bet 40 for value. I want hands like small and medium pocket pairs to stick around for at least one street. The small blind calls because he hates chips. Perhaps he's more of a goldfish cracker guy. The big blind folds. We're heads up. The turn is the 10. It's another good card. Small blind checks. This time I bet 100, targeting hands containing a jack and flush draws. Small blind lets it go, and that'd be the only interesting hand that I get in this room. I moved to the main game in a different area outside of Bobby's room. I can't call it Legends room anymore, it just doesn't feel right. I don't like change. One thing that doesn't change is my hand. I've got aces again, I'm under the gun, and I open to 30. The cutoff calls. The big blind calls who just got caught bluffing in a previous hand. He likes to get involved. We're going 3 ways to the flop. The dealer puts out 8-7 deuce with 2 spades. The big blind checks. I bet 50. I wouldn't mind one color, particularly if the player is out of position. That's what we get. The cutoff folds. The big blind sticks around. We're heads up. The turn is the 5 of diamonds. 9-6 and 6-4 make the straight. There are a couple of 2-pair combinations that the player might have. The big blind checks. Checking back is probably best since the cards out there are much better for my opponent's range than mine, but I've got such a strong hand and I could be up against lots of holdings that I'm ahead of, like 1-pair hands or flush draws, for example. I bet 120 for protection. There will be so many bad river cards for me that'll make it tough for me to get value on that street, so figure it's better for me to bet here and check back most rivers if I get called. The big blind buys the ticket to take the ride. The dealer puts out the 4 of clubs. There are 4 to the straight, but at least the flush draw missed. The big blind knows it's a much better card for him than it is for me. He takes the initiative betting 300 because he knows I'm likely not going to be betting it. In a 2-5 game, I'd auto fold this. I should be auto folding this too, but I'm not holding the ace of spades, so I could still be up against plenty of missed flush draws, and I saw this guy bluff in a similar situation earlier, plus I'm a whale. I call, to no one's surprise, I'm beat. The player turns over 10-6 of hearts, he flopped a gutter, while there was still a flush draw out there, turned an open-ender, then drilled it, and got paid. Maybe I'm more of a goldfish guy myself. At least the very next hand I get pocket aces again. This is super bizarre. All 3 times I've had the exact same suits. I probably only had aces back to back 5 or fewer times in my life, never in 5-10. My buddy's in the game, he opens a 30 in the cutoff. Small blind, who was the nemesis in the previous hand, calls. I 3-bet to 150, hoping it'll look like I'm on tilt and want to come after people. That's not what it looks like to anyone. Both players fold.
Back-to-back hands. First one.
Next we're in the big blind. Under the gun +1 opens at 30. The hijack calls, who's my buddy. The button also calls. We take a peek and see 7-3 suited. It's easy to look down at this and say to yourself, it's only 20 more. I have 2 suited cards that can make a straight. I'm getting roughly 1.5 million to 1 on a call. I'm closing the action. Let's do this. It's not actually how you want to think about things. The problem with calling in a situation like this is that there's only one straight you can make, and it'll never be the nuts. Plus, if you make a flush with multiple opponents involved, there's a good chance someone will have a better one if the pot starts getting big, and even if you are holding the winner, it'll be tough to get a lot of value from it when you're out of position. You should actually be playing tighter from the big blind when more players are involved. I'm aware of all this and disregard it completely. I call because A, it's more fun to play poker than it is to sit out and watch everybody else play. 2, I've never won a hand by folding. And C, Joe Hashim won the 2005 main event for $7.5 million with the worst version of this hand. If it's good enough for Joe, it's good enough for me. We're going 4 ways to the flop. The dealer puts out King 5-4 with 2 diamonds and 1 spade. We flop a gutter with a backdoor flush draw. As you'd expect, not a ton going on for the classic 7-3 suited. I check. Under the gun +1 doesn't love his hand. He checks. The hijack bets 60. The button calls. Folding a gutter with a flush draw out there seems reasonable. I have to be honest. A big piece of me wants to raise here instead. I'm the only one in this hand that can reasonably have all the 2 pairs. I can also have a set of 5s and 4s. I only have 3 outs I'll be happy to hit if I get called, but if I raise here, I could potentially continue firing as a bluff if any spade, deuce, or ace comes on the turn. The problem is that the hijack and button could actually have strong hands. Under the gun +1 could even have top set, who knows. I end up calling to see if I can turn some equity. Under the gun +1 folds. 3 of us are continuing on to the semifinal round, and some equity we turn, my friend. The dealer puts out the 6 of hearts. We drill the gutter, changing our hand from one that plays about as good as the New York Jets to a hand that plays more like the Kansas City Chiefs. I check the trap. The hijack doesn't fall for it. He checks. I really don't want this checking around. It's all on the button. He's very much like MacGyver, coming through in the clutch to save the day when times are tough. He bets 160. I'm ecstatic, but there are a ton of cards that I won't want to see on the river. I need to get as much money in now as possible. No messing around, I raised to 550. This could be an extremely big pot. The hijack folds, the action's back on the button. He doesn't look like he's going away. It looks like he's contemplating either a call or a jam. I have 1725 total in my stack at the moment, including the 550 that I put in the middle. The button has me covered, doesn't appear to be sweating much, looks like he's super strong, is counting his chips and eyeing mine. Remember how I mentioned if you make a straight with 7-3 it won't be the nuts? That thought's creeping around in the back of my mind right now. Could be up against 8-7, but I'm never getting away from this if I get jammed on, even though we're both deep. Time's going by extremely slowly, then the opponent slides in this huge stack of chips and announces that he's all in. Adrenaline's pumping through my body as we wait to see the final card. I don't even know if I'm ahead, and if I am, I don't know what cards I need to fade. Please put out a complete blank. The river is the 10 of spades. It seems like a great card because no additional hands are beating me. I look over at the button. He seems to have liked the river as well. He turns over pocket fives from middle set. No good. I turn over this garbage hand that was somehow spun into gold. It's almost embarrassing to win with it. The button's decision to flat and slow play his middle set on the flop cost him big time. He's as cool about it as can be though. He doesn't seem fazed by it at all. Really nice guy. After verifying the final count from my stack, the dealer pushes one of the largest pots that I've ever won at Bellagio my way. After getting stuck early on, we've got piles of chips in front of us. The stack's over 3,700. I pick up ace-king offsuit under the gun. I raise to 30. The hijack calls, the button calls, the big blind calls. We're going 4 ways to the flop. It comes king 6 deuce rainbow. We've got top and a multi-way pot. The big blind checks. I bet 50 for value. Narrowing this down to one player would be great, preferably if the big blind is the only caller so that I can play from in position going forward. The hijack folds, the button folds, the big blind calls. We get exactly what we want. It's down to heads up. The turn is the queen of diamonds. The big blind checks. I'll mix in betting and checking. In this instance, I check back for pot control and deception. The river is the 8 of diamonds. The opponent makes essentially a pot size bet at 220. A lot of the time when players do this, they just always have it, but I didn't check back turn. The plan's of folding. My hand is under-repped, and I checked back somewhat hoping to induce a bluff from a hand with little or no value. I call. Our play works out exactly as we drew it up. We catch the big blind with his hand in the cookie jar.
6. Okay.
I flip over a pair of kings to save the opponent some embarrassment. He returns his cards face down, so we never find out exactly what he tried to bluff us with. I'm not too concerned about it. My mind is preoccupied with what's to come. My stack deteriorates as I have to pay other people several times for winning with 7 deuce, and I lose a $300 bomb pot before picking up ace queen suited under the gun +1. Under the gun raises to 300 with a $49,000 stack. I could call or 3-bet. I 3-bet to 800 to deter people from calling behind me and playing in position. The small blind is a high stakes pro who's been on the vlog in the past. He knows that I don't normally play these stakes and puts in a cold 4-bet to 2,600. If he's doing this for value, he's going to have hands that have me crushed like aces, kings, queens, and ace-king. He shouldn't really be bluffing over an under-the-gun raise, then an under-the-gun +1 3-bet. But maybe he occasionally is with a hand like ace-5 suited, perhaps something more creative. Under-the-gun folds, calling for 1,800 more and playing an enormous pot with 2 cards that could be dominated doesn't sound too appealing. Ace-queen suited is too strong to let go of in position though. I call, we're heads up, and what's already developing into what could be a huge hand. The flop is ace-9-3 with 2 clubs. We've got top pair. The action's on the small blind. I'm curious to see how he's going to play this. He bets 2,500. It's just a slight down bet indicating that he's not afraid of the ace out there. No chance on ever folding. I call, somewhat hoping that the opponent will slow down on the turn because a pair of aces with a queen kicker isn't that great in a 4-bet pot if money continues to pile in on future streets. The turn is the 5 of clubs. It's a really bad card because the primary holding that I expect the opponent to be bluffing me with just made 2 pair. The flush draw also gets there, but I'm not very concerned about that given that the ace is a club. If the 9 was a club instead of the ace, I'd be way more worried that I'm drawing dead. The small blind continues with pressure and bets 5,000. I'm having flashbacks to when I lost a $60,000 pot and got stacked during the last time that I played stakes nearly this big. Should I be folding here? You'd think the small blind would pump the brakes with a hand like kings, queens, or jacks. Ace-king seems like the most likely hand that I'd be up against given how this has been played and how many combos of ace-king are possible for the opponent to have. If I call, I'll have 8,600 in my stack and the pot will be over $20,000. I don't see how I'd be able to fold to a non-club river for that amount. If by some chance I'm not already in terrible shape, even if my opponent has 1 club in his hand, he's going to at minimum have quite a few outs. I'm terrified that I'm about to get wrecked. The small blind has shown tons of strength despite me being able to have some really strong hands on this board as well. I can't get myself to lay down top pair yet, even though there are only 2 cards in the deck that'll make me feel any better. I call, making this already the largest pot that I've ever played at Bellagio. I'd like to see a non-club queen one time. The dealer puts out a miraculous queen of hearts, we smash it just when we need to. The small blind checks. If he has ace king here, I could get a massive double up. Part of me is wondering if I'm getting trapped by a set or a flush somehow. Should I check this back? What if I jam, get snap called, and lose almost an extra 9,000? I'll almost definitely get called by ace king and ace 5, so I can't check back. I subdue the fear of worst case scenarios and announce. The opponent doesn't even think about it. He folds the moment my chip hits the felt. There's no way that he had ace king or ace 5, and likely didn't have an ace at all. He must have tried to pull some type of elaborate move on me with his pre-flop board bet, coupled with his flop and turn bets. We were probably ahead the entire way as a huge pot, even for this game, comes our direction. With this win, we're up $11,000 at the moment. That's the most that I've ever been winning in any session. I couldn't have pictured it going much better than this.